Hello, and welcome to the newest edition of the Comic Madness Variety Hour. I'm Frank, and here with me is Troy.
Hello.
And Kyle is not here.
Oh,
where did he go? Where did he go? He's doing some wedding stuff.
Yay, Kyle!
Yay, Kyle! He met a woman that would put up with his shit.
Yay, boo!
So they're getting married.
Yay.
He will have some pre-recorded bits, but fair warning. This isn't probably going to be like the first one. Most likely, it'll sound like shit.
Yes.
And it'll be all over the place. But you know what? Bear with us. We're working through the kinks, and we wanted to make sure that something was...
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, was put out for a second episode, because it didn't sound like such a good idea to leave you guys hanging. So, we'll start off with probably the easiest thing, which is...
Well, it looks like the microphone shorted out on the boys there for a minute. I think the boys were talking about The Walking Dead this week. So we're going to cut back into where the audio did pick up. And I believe they're talking about the character Jesus, who at the end of this week's issue of Walking Dead was about to be stomped on by Beta. All right, I'll catch back up with you in just a few.
Kind of past that whole thing.
Being gay is fine.
Being gay is okay. You know what? And Jesus, you're cool. Which is also weird, is like I'm supposed to believe that this big-ass dude, Beta, is like able to sneak up on Jesus, the like ninja.
Yeah, he's like an apocalypse ninja. And this big-ass dude with the two giant, like, ridiculously sized knives is just going to be like, I'm right behind you.
No way. No way does that happen.
So either I'm thinking that it's all a setup and they know he's there, and then the next issue the guy's just going to start shooting him or something. Because
he's just going to turn around and be like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, the guy that's supposedly sleeping is just going to be like, gotcha.
And they're going to pull off his mask, and he's going to be...
And it's going to be Rick Grimes.
Oh.
What?
Nah, it's going to be President Obama.
Yo, that would be so sweet. I'd be like, damn, dude.
Barrio as Beta. Yeah.
He pulls off his mask, and it's Savage Dragon.
Crossover of the century. There wasn't really too much to it. Just a classic issue. Hopefully it gets better. I know that they had just announced, what was it, 175?
Yeah.
One of the upcoming arcs is going to be
New World Order.
Too
sweet.
Yeah, and it looks like there's like three guys, and they're all dressed up in armor, and they got what looks like futuristic weapons.
And fun fact, the three guys are copy and paste.
They're copy and paste.
All the same. Can we be done with Charlie Adler?
Probably not. That's never going to happen.
He's phoned it in, I feel, since like the 7th issue.
Oh, well, let's be fair. I mean, him and Kirkman... Probably more so, Adler has stumbled on a gold mine, so he can phone it in.
Yeah.
And there's nothing anyone's going to do about it.
Can we bring back Tony Moore?
Because I wish.
That would be too sweet. NWO.
There's too many times when...
Dag, happened again. All right, let's see if we can get you back into it.
Now there's so many characters
and I'm like,
that they just...
he's missing a hand. It must be Rick.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Rick.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, where is it Negan?
I don't know. Is it a guy or is it a woman?
I don't know. What is his ethnicity?
Yes.
Also, cannot tell.
Yes,
so it's real. That's probably why Jesus is always like, I'm gay.
So people know who he is.
So yeah, you're like, oh yeah, gay Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Good one.
Good one.
Good jokes.
You got it.
But yeah, that book is getting a bit rough.
Yeah, but it's also one of those books where that's how you feel until that one arc comes and it's awesome, and you're back in. It's exactly like the show.
It's the TV.
It is the TV and the comic are the same thing. They get to that point where you're like, this show sucks, and then they do something crazy, and you're like, this is the best show ever.
I mean, yeah, you do got to give it up to him. Up to the first 130 issues were awesome. But it's just you just run out of ideas. You know, what can you do?
Well, he says what? He's got
10 more years or something
which is insane. There's no way. That's got to be a lie. 10 years.
Well,
I mean,
Image
I
does
guess
lie a lot.
Yeah, Image is well known for saying one thing and then doing the other.
No more variants. Psych.
Psych. And then what was the other thing that they had said? That Here's Negan was originally in the Image magazines, and the way they bamboozled people into getting that was saying it was never going to be reprinted, and then before the story was even done, they were like, hey, hardcover,
Joke's
because
on you. $20 hardcover.
$20 hardcover because
for-
money.
For it equates to 2 issues.
Yeah, it's insane.
So yeah.
And that
was-
book is not. It's okay. It's
Here's
fine.
Negan was funny because you realize that him saying all that crazy stuff is funny,
Right? Yeah.
but then it was just sad. I don't know. It was, bleh.
It makes him a little bit more
But
well-rounded.
it was funny because I was reading this current issue and I was like, I've read this before. And it was because I had read the pink sketch variant. For you over there who don't know, last issue had the variant cover. I would have. There was one in. Did they ever tell you how many it was?
They never told how many.
It would have the signature was in pink, and in the back, instead of the word or the letters columns, it was the 6 first pages of this current issue. So I was reading it and I was like, "What the fuck? Why did they print this book twice?"
Which is great because it only goes into more the fact that Image was like, variants are ruining the industry. We're not doing variants. And they turned around and they started doing A and B variants. And then they started doing what looks like they're going to do these monthly like theme variants. This month is Walking Dead.
Which are awesome.
Which are
I'll give
cool. They are cool. But it's funny they said one thing and they're doing another. And then they've gone so far as to have variants of variants. So they
Secret
have
variants.
secret.
Marvel did the Secret Invasion scroll variants.
Right.
It's very, very much like that, which were cool. But Marvel's like, yeah, we do variants. That's what we do. Deal with
That's
it.
us.
That's
We're
how
a variant factory.
Yeah, we want your money more than we care about the quality of our books. So here's 45 variants to every book.
Which is a good segue because we can now talk about the Marvel books. Legacy. So, Legacy on a whole, I had read most of the Legacy books that came out this week, and it doesn't really seem like it's kind of anything. I thought it was going to be maybe a soft reboot, a good jumping on point. Some of those books are not good jumping on points. It just looks like they had taken these new numbers so, they could charge more money somewhere down the line for anniversary numberings. And I can't say for sure because I think it's like a real slow rollout, like 2 or 3 months of like new Legacy books. But the ones I've read so far,
Let's start with Spirits. So sorry about that for the chop. The microphone went out. But anyway, Spirits of Vengeance. I did not like it.
yeah, I didn't like it either. I was super excited for the team. It's a
too.
book that they have not done in a very long time. And yeah, it's already gotten stealth canceled. So it's done at issue 5.
And my major thing with it is that they feature Blade is about half the cover, and then he isn't in it until the last page. So, like, why not make it at least exciting? Don't put Blade anywhere on the cover, and then I'm reading it, and if I got to the last page and it was Blade, I'd be like, "Holy fucking shit, it's Blade! This comic rules!"
Yeah, I just want a Blade comic, honestly, where he's just hunting vampires.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't. Where's that been?
hunting that pussy.
Hunting that. The 2 things he loves the most. Yeah.
Things that Blade loves the most.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that it's a hard pass. I wouldn't even pick it up. Maybe the lenticular, which is okay.
Yeah, and it also starts the Marvel value stamp is a thing in Legacy where it's just a fake oversized stamp on a slice of
It's
paper.
not even a stamp. Let's say that.
No, yes.
There's no adhesive to it.
You can't mail
You
anything
can't
with
mail it. I think the mailman's going to be like, "What the fuck is this?"
And it would be half your envelope.
Yeah,
It's fucking
so
huge.
big.
But the other thing about it is it makes no sense to the comic. Like in this Spirits of Vengeance, the first stamp in it is Miles Morales. Like make it Blade. Ghost
Right,
Rider,
something like
Satana.
that, where you're like, "Cool, these are the characters I like." Like now I have this fake ass stamp.
Now I have this. Oh, but if you take the digital code, you can get a digital stamp too.
Oh man, a digital stamp. Like you can't go on Google
so you can
and just
send emails.
Oh no, please
But
stop.
yes, enough about Spirits of Vengeance. Venom.
Venom. Okay, we could talk about Venom.
I liked it.
So, yeah, I liked it too, but this goes into what I was talking about. It's not really a jumping on point.
It is 0% a jumping
It
on
is
point.
0% a jumping on point.
Because it introduces characters, well, not introduces, but has characters from like the last 3 series that have come out of Venom. And if you didn't read them, then you'd just be like, oh, this is some long hair. Like, what's he doing?
There's also dinosaurs like that he's like hanging out with.
They look like the dinosaur people from Ninja Turtles when
No,
they were like children.
They look like the dinosaur people from that ABC TV series. Not what's it?
Dinosaurs?
Not the mama.
Yeah, it's bad. And then they bring in the moloids, but there's no mole man. And
There's no mole man. They just have their big giant
but
beast thing.
it's not even that green monster from like the famous Fantastic Four cover. It's just like a giant fucking lizard.
Yeah,
makes
it's
no
just a giant
sense.
lizard. And let's also talk about
splurge.
let's also talk about the fact that there's, I don't know because I haven't really been reading Venom, but I guess Venom and like the symbiote and who is it? It's Eddie Brock are like in love or something.
Yeah, it's really, really awkward.
He like talks to him and says,
He's like, chill, baby.
my
all's
love.
good."
Yeah, and it like
It's like that dude from Silence of the Lambs that wore skin.
yeah, it's creepy,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's what they're going for or what. Because I'm not into that. I'm not into. I'm into a lot of things. I'm not into. I'm not into interspecies. So maybe not.
Yeah, who cares, dude? You wouldn't bang in one of those dinosaur women?
I mean,
Interspecies. Some alien comes down. She's like, "Yo, you want to be the first guy to smash an alien?" You're gonna be like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm not into interspecies."
I'm like, nah. I'm like, nah. Well, I think in that situation it'd be a little bit different because I think I'm getting like.
yeah, and if you're a Venom, you'd have like some weird ass alien dick. It'd be fine.
Yeah, I don't know how it works either. I don't really want to. I will say though, the ending is pretty cool because
It's so cool.
it has Kraven the Hunter, which is like a character that I love.
Kraven the Hunter. Also, the one cool thing about Legacy is that bringing those characters back, because Kraven's been gone for years. now.
Yeah, and he's one of those characters that I feel like dies and then like kind of comes back off page. Like they're like, oh, he was dead, and you're like, wait a second. I thought he was dead, and they're like, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, then they're like, but he was clutching the tooth of a saber-toothed tiger, so now he's
And it
back
came
to life, and you're like, all
They
right.
restored him, yeah, and you're like, okay, I buy
I
it.
don't understand what wildlife, so I believe it.
Yeah, so the only other thing I would say, Marvel-wise, that I was into,
What? So good.
The Punisher, The Platoon. So this is Ennis's return to The Punisher. You know, this is probably the character I would say, in general, definitely for Marvel, that he's most well-known for writing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's a return for him, and it is a treat. If you go into it thinking, I will say though, if you go into it thinking that you're going to get a classic Punisher,
Yeah, take this, druggies.
yeah, and he's like, yeah, get this, I'm going to kill everyone. So far, this does not look like it's going to be the comic for you. It's definitely more of just a kind of.
It's like a slow burn.
It's a
But
slow burn war story.
Yeah, the climax is going to be so awesome.
Right, and it's about his time in Vietnam, and they have this interesting thing where there is some sort of writer interviewing the surviving members of his platoon, and trying to kind of get the full story of what happened to him in Nam. An interesting thing of note is that they never actually reveal who the author is that is speaking, which is clear that it's going to be some sort of shocking reveal. My bet is if you read it, it's going to be some sort of Viet Cong or some child of Viet Cong or something like that. Is Viet Cong PC?
I don't think anything's PC anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything.
Vietnamese
Vietnamese?
people.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Somebody
in this
from
entire
Vietnam.
book, he doesn't kill a single person. And my only problem with the book, I loved it, by the way, so definitely pick it up. It is so good. Is that sometimes two of the guys kind of look the same. not that the art is bad, but I would mix. I mixed up the characters a little bit.
Yeah, which is funny for the Punisher because I think for whatever reason, most of the artists he gets are people that aren't necessarily good at like drawing individual human beings, and I think maybe it's because the Punisher a lot of times doesn't necessarily fight like, you know, costume heroes or anything like that. It's like other individuals.
He is not great at drawing ethnicities because he's not. They look super like racist, almost propaganda posters like this one right here.
Yeah, there's definitely some.
But it's supposed to be about Vietnam, so maybe he did that on purpose. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But
it's hard to say.
It's a blast. You should definitely check it out. Definitely, if you're a Punisher fan, you'll like it. If you just want a good war story,
or just a good story in general, yeah. And it's under the Max line, which is always nice too, because
you can just do whatever you want.
You do whatever you want. Obviously not for children, but I would say most of the people probably listening to this podcast aren't children. And if you are, you know what? Read it. Okay? I'm gonna be a bad influence here and just say read it.
So do you think that Garth Ennis is more known for Punisher or Preacher?
Probably. I don't know. So Punisher, it would probably.
It's tough because Punisher has, but I get it's an unfair.
I would say if you're into comics, I would say he's better known for Punisher. If you're not, then that means you probably have limited exposure to like writers and stuff, and you would only know him through Preacher, and you probably picked it up because of the TV show.
But then it's unfair too because probably 50 people have written the Punisher, and only he wrote the. And Preacher.
I think a lot of those kind of big time writers like Ennis fall under that, where they kind of have the characters that you're like, oh, this guy writes this character so well, and then they almost always have that kind of independent series that people are like, oh, this is the best thing that they've ever done.
That's how I feel about oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Dude that wrote Transmetropolitan.
What is his name? Transmetropolitan.
We'll get back to it once I think of it.
Wow, that's really bad for this comic podcast that we weren't able to figure that out. I will say, though, very quickly, before we wrap up on Marvel, I had read the Star Wars comics. Somewhere in this podcast, Kyle has recorded a kind of separate thing with his takes for the week. And I know he likes to talk about Star Wars, so I'll talk about Star Wars real quick. The Star Wars... Warren Ellis. That was Transmetropolitan. The Star Wars books were really good this week. I liked Phasma. The Star Wars, the main title wrapped up. It was
awesome.
Yeah, so I have like a weird thing with the main Star Wars book.
It's not good.
Yeah, I'm never really into it when it's actually about the main characters, and I think it has a lot to do with the stakes that are set up. And
because nothing can happen.
Right. You already know what's going to happen with Luke. You already know what's going to happen with Han. You already know what's going to happen with Leia. So they set these things up, and it's like, oh, here comes Vader, and they're trapped, and how are they going to get out of this one? And you're like, they're going to get out of this one because there's like 3 other movies where they're in. So, so like, this is not good.
The stakes are not high.
The stakes are not high. But when they get these opportunities to introduce these new characters, such as the Scar Squad,
so cool.
It's very cool to me because you don't know what's going to happen to them. And the Scar Squad is really set up where, you know, stormtroopers historically, and I think canon-wise, they're not really given personalities or anything like that. And these guys fall more in line with, like, the clones from the clone troopers where they have personalities, and one guy has a lightsaber, which I think is really cool, and there's one dude who's like massive, and you never see any like size difference between stormtroopers, and you got like a cool sniper guy. So they show up at the end.
They don't show up at the end. They were in the whole issue.
Well, no, I mean at the end, like the last issue,
okay.
And this is his end of his run. So hopefully,
Jason Aaron is done.
Kind of tier, yeah. Karen Gillan is taking it up, and his run on Darth Vader was amazing. So I'm hoping maybe he'll let those characters, he gets to play around with them, and hopefully that book kind of improves overall, because it had some strong arcs, but there was other times where I wasn't that into it.
It's exactly what you said. It needs to ditch the main 3. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see Luke, I do not want to see Leia, and I do not want to see Han Solo.
I don't care.
Because there's nothing. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I will say outside of like Vader, like as a character, because I think they have a lot more leeway with what they can do.
Can, like, fuck up Darth Vader too because he's like a robot.
Right. Yeah. So
they
he
can
can
just
get like
bring
his
him back.
limb like like lopped off, and then he just like repairs himself. But then I think a lot of the cool standout characters, such as Afra, who has gotten their own their own series rather. They're able to do a lot more, and it's way cooler because you don't know what's going to happen, and they are able to introduce more characters, and that kind of plays in with the Darth Vader comic that came out this week, which is probably better than the Star Wars one. The Darth Vader in general has been really good. The Gillen run was awesome. This new one, I actually forgot who wrote it.
I'll put it Charles Soule.
Charles Soule.
I'll put it down. You know me. I don't like Star Wars.
Yeah, you're not a big Star Wars guy.
But this Darth Vader book is so fucking good. It's so good that it makes me want to read Star Wars stuff.
Want to be in Star Wars.
But I don't care about the movies or whatever. Like, my favorite Star Wars movie is The Phantom Menace.
Right.
Like, that's how little I care about it.
There's your first hot take of this podcast. Podcast.
Podcast, it is correct. Rogue One is okay. I'll take it. I'll walk it back. Rogue One. But it's just so good that I actually find myself caring about the characters. Like, I sent Kyle like a ton of text messages. I was like, "Who's this? Who's this?
What does this mean?"
Yeah. And then he explained it to me really well, and I was just like, "Whoa, that's so fucking cool." Like,
Kyle, which is our resident Star Wars nerd, if you haven't caught on yet.
Yes, if you need to know anything Star Wars,
that's
you
the dude to
Kyle,
go to. They introduced the Inquisitor, which I know he kind of talks about in depth, but is a really cool character, and they're basically like the Inquisitors are like this like Jedi like Death Squad hunters, sort of thing. Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like is I thought the Inquisitor's weapon was so lame.
Well, you can only do so much with the lightsabers before it's impressive.
It was two sides, and I was like, "Oh, whatever, that's cool." And then it started spinning.
It starts spinning like a fan,
like a pot.
Like I like that though. That's cool. It's like
airplane prop, and I was just like, "No, anything that tells me about anything action is if somebody has something that's spinning." Just stick a stick in it, and they're gonna like get.
But it's a lightsaber. Right. You put the stick in there, and it just gets
but what did Darth Vader do? He just put his lightsaber in there.
Well, it is kind of funny that he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm gonna mess you up," and Darth Vader's like, "Yeah," and they're like fighting, and he's like, "Yes, you're nothing to me," and he's like, "Yeah," and then finally Darth Vader's just like, "Yeah,
I've had enough. Of this.
This is bullshit." Yeah. And he's like, "What had happened? I thought I was the strongest."
And then Darth Vader's like, "Not today, son." Yes, Darth Vader, I feel like in this 6 issues that Charles Soule has written, has had more character development than all of the movies put together.
Yeah, well, he doesn't really, outside of, I would say, probably the last movie, doesn't have a huge amount of character development.
See, that's my problem with
the big
Star
bad.
Wars, though, is none of them have character development.
This is not a conversation to be having without Kyle, though, because this is something we could talk about for 15 minutes, and I know that I'm going to send him this audio because he's our engineer, and he's going to be like, "Oh, I can't believe you guys talked about Star Wars without me."
All right, Kyle, we'll save it for you.
Kyle, this one's for you.
Right,
we're saving it. So, moving on from Marvel, I think we'll just jump right into DC, which has been
so good.
So good, and it was a huge Batman week.
Huge Batman.
I would say the only Batman book of note that didn't come out was Detective.
That came out last week, though. Sold out too. Sorry, dudes.
So I don't even know what to start off with. I guess the easiest would be, do you want to talk about just straight up Batman? The end of the war of jokes and riddles.
I am so glad that it's over. It was so butt that I didn't even want to read it. The art was... I thought the Joker looked silly. He looked like Kenny G, from the 80s. I was just like...
Playing that so smooth jazz.
And then, when is the Riddler just hard as shit all of a sudden? I'm like, dude, you're the Riddler. Give me a break.
See, that's a newer thing that I think they did with Scott Snyder's run, where they kind of made him... Because he was always kind of a joke villain, and then recently, over the past couple of years, they started making him kind of on par with the Joker, and then right up until this point, making him also one of his like arch enemies, where it's always been Batman and the Joker, but now they're like, oh, maybe Batman and the Riddler, because the Riddler turns out at the end of this to be pretty much this huge mastermind who like created Kite Man and his scenario, killing his kid.
Yeah, see, that's another thing for me. Having kids, when they like bring in kids like that, just for the sympathy aspect of it, I'm just like, it's like, just leave that alone. You know, you didn't need that.
Right, but that's what makes it dark, though, and it I think brings out those feelings, though, so you connect to that book more because you're like, oh shit,
but I
this
didn't.
is messed up.
I was just like, I don't want to read about this,
Right.
so it like kind of took me out of it. You know?
Okay, I could see that.
Maybe if he killed like his wife or his dog,
Right.
or, like, you know, and he's like, damn, dude, I love my dog, but now he's gone.
At the end of the day, I mean, it makes it's an interesting case because it makes the argument that, you know, Batman isn't so different from his villains, and he has a moment where if the Joker didn't have stop him, he essentially would have killed the Riddler, which would have almost changed Batman, I think, entirely.
But that was like, the other thing was the Riddler's like, if I wanted to, you would be in a grave tomorrow or whatever. But pussy, you haven't put him in a grave in 70 years,
Yeah.
and you're the Riddler, dude. Get out of here.
And you're the Riddler.
Like, you know, you thought you had the Batman shook, but I'm sure he knew what was going on.
Well, that's what they've changed his character a little bit more now, where he seems to be like the smartest man in the room. You know, almost rivaling Batman's intellect, and in some cases exceeding it, which is interesting to me because I think that it's always interesting to have those because you have like Bane, who's clearly stronger than Batman. You know, you have the Riddler, who might be smarter. You have the Joker, who is kind of his polar opposite when it comes to, you know, Batman's insane about fighting crime, and Joker himself is just insane. Like, all his characters kind of are better his villains gallery, I find.
Yeah, but I mean, you bring up an interesting point about Bane, because originally Bane wasn't that big, hulked up, stupid guy. He was like also a criminal mastermind.
Right.
So then that movie came out, fucking terrible, Batman Forever, was it? Where Bane was just like, me, Bane.
Oh,
And
the
then,
Venom!
Yeah, then that, like, they changed his character. Like, I mean, Tom King tried to bring it back recently in the I Am Bane story, where it's like...
See, because Bane is always supposed to be like, he was like Batman, but if Batman took a different path.
Right, if Batman did Venom and
Basically did
lived in
steroids and...
a hole in the ground.
was a Mongoloid.
Oh, God.
Is Mongoloid not PC? I don't even know
You're
anymore.
fucking up, dude.
Mongoloid's not PC? I think it's fine. I think, isn't Mongoloid like...
You just have
like a
huge
monster?
head. No, I think Mongoloid means you have like a huge, like, bulbous head.
Well, he does then. Then that's
but
fine.
so do I.
Well, you're a Mongoloid too.
Thanks, man.
Is that not PC, bruh?
Oh, I don't care. You can say whatever you want about me.
Yeah, I guess this, last I checked, this was America.
Oh,
I am a real
fight for
American.
what's right. All right, moving on. Green Arrow
Green Arrow.
and the finale of Gotham Resistance. How do you feel about it?
Final, it was the last part of a 4-issue miniseries. On the whole, if you take it on the whole, I will say that Gotham Resistance was a lot better than I thought it even had a right to be.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, like, I went in with low expectations just because I've been burned so many times by so many different publishers when it comes to kind of crossovers like this, and I was pleasantly surprised. That being said, this issue, I was kind of indifferent to.
I thought this issue was absolute dreck.
Yeah, I was not into the fact that we had talked about this in the last podcast, that they pretty much skip over entirely the Mad Hatter's land, which I think they could have had a lot of fun with, but it's just them running past it, more or less.
Until Dr. Fate shows up.
Until Dr. Fate. But speaking of Bane, he does Bane, the House of... Bane's House of Pain
or something.
I thought that was kind of funny, where he was like fighting, like big dudes just fighting each other.
In the beginning, it's these two dudes that look like Rock'em Sock'em robots that are just punching each other. Then this big fat man
It's a sumo.
falls out of the sky.
Sumo is fighting. He's got these big guys fighting for like a tournament sort of thing.
This book, to me, ruined Gotham Resistance, though. Because it was so fun, and then literally this issue is just Game of Thrones. They go out on the wall, it's the battle of, where, the leader of the Brotherhood, Watchers dies, the Battle of like Horn Hill or whatever.
Yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about.
So they
Mormont,
finally,
right?
Yeah, Mormont dies. They finally get to like the big battle or whatever, and they're losing, and then all of a sudden he gets shot. Robin gets shot with this nth metal arrow, and then he's like, "Oh, let me break this arrow off and stab it into one of these dark dimension guys," and he dies. And then literally at the end, freaking Green Arrow's holding up the arrow, and he's like, verbatim, "Now we know how to kill them," which I'm pretty sure is when Jon Snow's holding up the dragon glass and it's like, "Now we know how to kill them." It's so bad.
Well, that's the biggest thing right now to copy off of is Game of Thrones because it's like one of the hottest properties. So you see it popping up every which way with everything.
The artist on this book is so hit or miss.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the Green Arrow. Is that the artist for Green Arrow? Or
that's one of the few DC books I do not read. But some of the panels are so good. And then some of them are so bad.
See, I think this might have been, I think this might have been like a case of, you know, it being...
They're all wearing like dentures.
Yeah, it might have been a case of like... You know, because of the shipping schedule, every once in a while you see some not so great art or some rushed art, I would say, which might be the case when it comes to, what is it, Williamson, yeah, because he does a lot. He's one of those guys that does a lot with like shadow and light that you don't see too often.
He's a guy that tries to draw teeth too much. You don't need to draw teeth in comics. Every character doesn't need to have like individual.
That's a fair point. We all know people have teeth.
Yeah, dude, I get it.
For the most part. I mean, not everyone has teeth, but most of the lucky ones have teeth. No offense if you don't have teeth. I'm sure you're a fine individual. Yes. Moving on.
So the other one, Dark Knight's The Dawnbreaker.
The Dawnbreaker. So this is the third one shot for Dark Knights. And I will say that for me personally, it keeps getting better and better. This one was equally as good.
I agree with that.
It does not seem to stop. This one is super cool where he essentially gets the ring and his willpower is so strong that he's able to bend the will of the ring to because his willpower is so strong. Yeah.
But it leads to my conclusion that in all these books, they're all just huge fucking pussies.
The Batmans?
Yeah. He's like, I'm sad because my parents died. Like, which would suck. I don't know, so I apologize to anybody that does. But I'm not willing to destroy my world because my parents died.
Yeah, a little bit of an extreme for sure.
He's like, my parents died, so now I'm going to corrupt this ring. So he's basically
killing all these people.
A Black Lantern, but he's not. He's still a Green Lantern for some reason.
Yeah, it is strange. They kind of seem to flirt with the idea of turning him into a Black Lantern, but I guess because of the motif, they don't want to. They don't want to like transform. I would have thought it would have transformed him, especially at one point he goes against what seems to be the whole Green Lantern Corps of that Earth.
And beats them all in like a second.
And beats them all, and then they're just like, yeah,
cool. Now I'm like floating in space randomly.
Keep in mind that the Green Lantern ring is supposed to be like the strongest weapon in the DC universe, or one of them. So it's kind of hard for me to believe that a whole corps, especially well-trained lanterns, would just get destroyed like that. But I guess that's what they're trying to say. That kind of talks to Batman's character as the Dawnbreaker. He's that strong that even the Guardians,
because I forgot Batman's like perseverance is just his will is just
and even like the Guardians, what are they? The Guardians, they're supposed to be like one of the people that are like immortal or like they're like they're like endless, so they're like one of those top celestial characters, and they just get beat.
And he comes and he fucks with eventually comes to the regular DC thing and fucks with Hal Jordan and just like starts whooping his ass until Dr. Fate intervenes. But like Hal Jordan is the strongest DC character.
Right, yeah.
Like, why doesn't he go all parallax and just start going, like, insane?
Yeah, there's been, I mean, he literally fights gods.
You think you're sad because, like, your parents are dead? Let me show you real fucking fear. And then he turns into parallax. I'd be like, this is amazing. But instead, Dr. Fate comes and he's like, "Not today, Junior."
Yeah, not Doctor Fate keeps popping up, so I guess he's
which
going to
is
be
so awesome.
Yeah,
JSA,
pretty big player coming up. Yeah, I hope that. I'm guessing that's going to be in Metal 3, which I think is
crazy
this week.
is Ethan Van Sciver's art in this Dawnbreaker is amazing, and his cover to Shadow Batman might be the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
So Shadow and
It
Batman
makes me sad.
is the continuation of Batman and Shadow. So this is Dynamite now getting their turn to play with Batman, whereas DC got to play with the Shadow.
Yes.
Of course, in Dynamite fashion, they did, I think, about 100 covers for issue
24, I think.
Yeah,
covers?
they so there was like 8 regular, 3 variants, so a total for 11, and then there was like 15 retailer variants.
27.
Yeah, they so Dynamite
27 covers.
Dynamite was like, we got the Batman, so let's make as many
put
covers as we can.
everything on him.
To be fair to them, I'd probably do the same thing because it's like cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
My problem with it is, as good as Batman Shadow was, is as bad as the Shadow Batman is.
So you're saying it's the opposite,
Yeah,
pretty
it's-
much,
I don't like Robin. I don't like Damian Wayne.
right?
And it's like he's just lame. On the 3rd page, he literally says, "I'm also allergic to people who give orders." Like, dude, fuck you. I get it. But Batman's telling you to do something, you do it. Batman
Yeah.
came in and told me to do something. I'd be like, fuck, all right, dude, you're Batman. Of course I'm going to do that.
So I wasn't able to read Batman the Shadow because we had actually sold out of like the first couple issues, so I wasn't able to jump on board.
It's so good.
I was one of those dudes that, you know, you hear about it when it's on its 5th issue, and then you go in the comic shop and you're like, can I get the first 4? And the guy's just like, nah.
They're like, you can have one
Yeah.
and nothing and nothing.
We can
else.
do 1, 3, and then, you know, that's it. And you're
No,
like,
you
yeah.
can't get 3, dude. 3's the hotness.
3's the hotness.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to read it, so I thought I would jump on in here. And yeah, I was a little disappointed.
Look at this dumbass cover, though. Where's his weird finger?
I
And it
will
doesn't have
say-
a thumb.
I will say that
What the fuck? It's so bad.
I don't know a whole lot about the Shadow. I know that you're like a big
I love
war
the Shadow.
guy, and you like some of the older characters. The Shadow, he's got powers, right?
Yeah, dude.
What is his powers exactly? Because I guess he can actually travel through shadows. Is
Yeah,
what it seems
and
like.
he can turn into a shadow. He can travel through shadow. He can kind of control people's minds.
Right, because
awesome.
there's
And
a
he's
moment where I guess he's like reading Professor Pig's mind or something.
Yeah, and he can read their minds. He can kind of control people,
Right.
like depending on how big like your will is.
So he's like a cooler version of Batman.
and he's just hard as shit. Like
And he's got a huge nose
yeah,
and a sweet ass scarf.
yeah, yeah, dude. And he like knows stuff. He kind of has like.
What do
he
you mean
just,
by nose?
He like
stuff?
knows things. I don't know. He just it's like the shadow knows.
He has like a
you
sixth
know?
sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what
kinda,
like what's the saying? Who knows what the shadow knows, or what the hell is it?
It's just
It's
yeah,
some
the
sort of
shadow
saying
knows
like
is
that.
just-
Yeah, the shadow knows.
Yeah.
I
That movie was terrible. Don't watch it. But you should read the old noir shadow stuff. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. His nose always kind of throws me off.
Anybody out there, I know it sucks you can't find the issues, but as soon as that trade comes out, you owe it to yourself to read it because it's so good.
And that is extremely high praise coming from Troy.
And the
I'll tell
art
you, he does
is-
not.
Art's incredible. Story's amazing. Has 2 of my favorite panels in comic book history in it. So that's going up there with the big boys.
Whoa,
So-
this guy coming in bringing out
Dude,
the
I
big
showed. I
guns.
sent you a picture of it because of how awesome it was. I was like,
that is true.
oh my god.
It is pretty sweet. But when Troy says to buy something, you should probably get your ass.
Yes,
out to the
fun
shop
fact
and
about
buy it.
us telling when we recommend stuff to you guys, it's because we legitimately think that you'll like it. We don't get anything from it. We are not trying to push comics. DC or Marvel doesn't be like, if you guys sell a bunch of these, we'll give you X.
Yeah.
We want you to read it because we think that you'll like it.
Yeah, if
And
you
if you don't like it, we're not going to be offended if you tell us that you don't like it.
right.
We'll
If
just be like,
anything,
"Oh,
that's
my bad."
probably better.
Yeah, it's like tell us that you don't like it, and maybe next time you recommend something, we recommend something to you, we'll think twice about what you told us, or not recommend it to you at all, and be like, oh, well, if you didn't like this, then you probably won't like this. it's impossible to offend us.
It is definitely impossible to...
Dude, we work with Wade. It is impossible to offend us.
And I will say, especially like if you are getting a recommendation from us, it means...
we both agree on it?
Yeah, we both agree on it. It usually means that it's tailored personally to you. You got to think of it as kind of like, you know, you have all these algorithms now. Like, we know what you like. We think you will like this, what you won't like. And a lot of times if we're like, yo, you should buy this, take us up on it, because at least me personally, and I think Troy's the same exact way, like he was saying, we don't get anything out of it personally as a shop, just in general, because it hurts us probably more to like
recommend a bad
book and then burn you than it is for us to like sometimes, especially with me, if you're a customer that comes into the shop and, you know, I don't recommend anything to you, and then there's like once in like a 6-month period where I'm like, give this to you, that's because I firmly believe that you will like that as an individual. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm recommending that to
we don't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah,
there's books that I've recommended to like a single person. And
right, like X likes it, but
will like this. You should read it.
Right.
But what I will recommend to everyone, and the second trade just came out, and that's all of it. You really owe it to yourself to read the Flintstones. It sounds so stupid.
It sounds crazy when
it sounds insane. Like, and that nobody has taken me up on it. But I'm telling you, people out there, read the Flintstones. You owe it to yourself. It's some of the best social commentary I've.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the same thing, because I believe that the Flintstones, I was kind of the same way, especially when all those books came out, and the Flintstones was one of the funniest books I've read in like
I laughed out
time.
loud at the Flintstones more than once.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, there's nothing really else to say about it, especially because you're right. The social commentary of it is like on point, maybe even more so on point now after it's come out because of certain political things and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it was so on point now that it might have like skipped the point now. But
right.
We all lived it. You should read it. Quick hit, Batman White Knight. I did not like it. Junior loved it.
I liked it a lot. I know Kyle speaks at length about it. I will say it is very interesting as a think piece between the Batman and the Joker, which is something that I had talked about with the War of Joke and Riddles, with the Batman thing.
I love the art.
The art
is amazing.
Sean Murphy is one of those guys that almost never fails. Like, anytime he comes out with a book, I think his art is fantastic. It's the only thing that sucks is he has seemed to have, at least in the past couple of years, had books where he writes and does the art, so he rarely pops up. Like, he'll go away for a year, and then he'll come back and he'll be like, hey, I'm writing and drawing this, and you're like, sweet. And as a writer, he ranges from okay to very good, and I will say that I found this issue to be very good.
I will say, even though I didn't like it, I will read the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
If not for art alone. My biggest problem is I actually didn't hate the first issue, but it took like the analogy of like, not the analogy, whatever the old saying, like, would you take crazy pills? Right. But he took like uncrazy pills, so I was just like, oh, give me a break.
Sean Murphy is definitely one of those guys, and I would say, at least for me personally, one of those very rare artists where I will actually jump on a book if he's doing the art, which is not a lot of artists for me.
Like, I have him, and I have that's probably about it.
Yeah, I will say that I picked up I think his last book was, did he do Tokyo Ghost
Chrononauts?
Chrononauts. Tokyo Ghost, which I think he also wrote. I'm not too sure. All I know is I picked it up just to look at the art. I actually didn't even read the book.
No, it was like Sweet Dudes on Motorcycles.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, I'll look at it, but I'm not necessarily going to read it.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle. I'm coming to you live and pre-recorded from somewhere else. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the shop for this episode. As any of you who have gotten married before know, there are just too many things that need to be done when you're getting down to the wire, and I am down to the wire, so I'm stuck in wedding hell. But I didn't want to go without giving everybody my quick hits of books this week that really left an impression on me or I had something to say about. So we're going to start off with Batman the Dawnbreaker. As a really big Green Lantern fan, this is the book I was looking forward to most after Batman the Man Who Laughs, which is the last one-shot coming out for this Dark Knights one-shot thing. I like that they got Ethan Van Sciver to do the artwork on this. Ethan Van Sciver, I think, is probably the premier Green Lantern artist working today. He did Green Lantern Rebirth. He did the first story in the Sinestro Corps War. He did designs on The Blackest Night. It was great that they brought him in to do this book where they added a new facet to Green Lantern mythology, inspired by Batman and the Dark Multiverse. This book kind of shows a Bruce Wayne who gets a Green Lantern ring because he not just has the ability to overcome fear, but he actually can't experience fear. And this kind of explores Batman's whole reserved emotional nature, where the Murder Machine dealt with Batman's obsessive behavior. This kind of dealt with his reluctance to let people in and invest themselves emotionally in Batman. And I like that he corrupts the Green Lantern ring with his inherent darkness, like his void, and kind of makes this void dark willpower that is, instead of light constructs, they're more like darkness constructs, still fed by will, but corrupted by the darkness he's letting into the Green Lantern ring. It even cracks the Green Lantern ring. So I really like that. Getting into Star Wars stuff, that's something I'm really big into, is Star Wars. I read all the books, I read all the comics, I collect figures, I play video games, I watch all the cartoons, the movies, everything. I'm really into Star Wars. So this week had a lot of big Star Wars books come out. First, we'll get to Captain Phasma. If you're not reading Captain Phasma, which is part of the Journey to the Last Jedi series of prelude stories, I'd really recommend it. This takes place between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and kind of follows Phasma as she escapes Starkiller Base and how she winds up where she's going to begin in The Last Jedi. It's a bi-weekly series, so what's nice about this is that this is only a 2-month-long 4-issue series, and it really helps us narratively see Phasma as a character in ways we didn't get to in The Force Awakens. That's something that these Star Wars comics and books do best, is they give us more time with characters that we really can't spend time with in the movies. People were really excited about Captain Phasma, and she kind of served her purpose as necessary for The Force Awakens, but people, I think, wanted to see more of her. So with this comic and with a subsequent novel that also came out this month, we get to learn a lot more about Captain Phasma and what motivates her and kind of how she acts and reacts in personal adventure situations. This comic really serves as a nice companion to the novel in a lot of ways, where both are their own separate stories and do their own separate things, but the fact that they came out in the same month together, there's a lot of room for them to work with each other. The comic talks about things that are bits revealed in the book that you may not quite understand if you're just reading the comic, and they just seem to be a part of Phasma's mysterious background. And the novel sheds a lot of light on that. So if you're reading the novel right now, like I am, unfortunately I'm behind on it, as, again, wedding stuff is keeping me from it. The novel sheds a lot of light on stuff that's going on in the book that she's talking about. The comic, I mean. So I really recommend picking up Captain Phasma. There's only one more part out in 2 weeks. So if you catch up on it now, you'll get a really nice story before The Last Jedi comes out. There's also the last issue of Jason Aaron's Star Wars run came out today. It was a nice cap on his run by getting to follow Scar Squad again, the Scar Troopers, that he introduced, oh God, what was that, almost a year ago, maybe more than a year ago, in the Flight of the Harbinger, in the last Flight of the Harbinger. and they were really cool characters that I've really wanted to see more of, and we kind of get to follow them as his last real foray into Star Wars comics for a little bit. I'd like to see him return, maybe with a Scar Squadron book. I don't know if the popularity is as there for everybody else as it is for me and for some of us at the shop. I'm sure Frank will talk about at length that he really likes Scar Squad. So that was really cool. It was also nice that it wrapped up his run without wrapping up the story of the book, which obviously it shouldn't. The story of the book ends with The Empire Strikes Back. But it's nice that in a lot of ways those threads are going to continue on, for this ongoing. And then we get to the Darth Vader book, which ends and kind of begins a new story for Darth Vader. We're introduced, at least in this book, to the Inquisitors. Now remember that this book takes place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, about within the first year after Revenge of the Sith. So in a lot of ways, this is the introduction of the Inquisitors into the Star Wars story. Darth Vader getting to know about them for the first time. We meet the Grand Inquisitor. We meet the fifth brother, sixth brother, seventh sister, eighth brother, and a couple new Inquisitors that we don't know the names of yet. They're second or third or whatever they are. And kind of get this feeling that they were maybe starting to be put together before Revenge of the Sith, and they're made up of Jedi or Force-wielding light side users who the Emperor has turned to the dark side. The Grand Inquisitor, if you watch the show Rebels, you know that he used to be a temple guard. He wasn't even a full-fledged Jedi Knight or Jedi Master. He was a temple guard, and we get to learn a little bit about the nature of how Palpatine brought him over to the dark side, which was really awesome. There's something cool that happens between him and Vader that kind of retroactively informs his character in Rebels, and something that happens to him at the end of Season 1 that I thought was like a really cool parallel. So I would definitely recommend checking out those books. All right, so moving on to Batman. So this week had a couple Batman books that were kind of finishing up their stories. We'll start with All-Star Batman, which wrapped up its entire series, really. I really like this book. I'm a really big fan of Scott Snyder. I think he's probably one of the best Batman writers of our time. And one thing he does super well is stick the landing, and he really wraps things up in a super satisfying ending that ties together the whole piece and really defines it for its entirety, with a lot of nice action and characterization. This final story of his experimental book, All-Star Batman, where he got to kind of play with some of the Batman toys in a little bit more of a experimental fashion. He got to redefine a lot of villains and explore a lot of different things. My Own Worst Enemy was the first arc he did with Two-Face, and then he did a couple small little stories that made up 1 second arc. And then finally, this arc called The First Ally that was all about Alfred, and really characterized him, and the whole story was about fathers and sons in a direction of mentors and mentees and surrogate fathers. And I really thought this issue was extremely strong. It made its point about the story and Alfred, really well. I like that it essentially was a pirate story. That was very clear from the narration of these 5 issues, that it was modeled to be a pirate story. So then we also have Batman, which wraps up the war of jokes and riddles. And Tom King is another one who's a really great Batman writer right now. I know the feeling has been that some of his arcs are big hits, and then some of his arcs are just fine. I've really liked his whole run thus far a lot, and I really liked War of Jokes and Riddles. I know Troy has probably talked about that he's not the biggest fan of this arc, but I really was. I really liked the way it was told. I really liked the events that happened. I really liked what was going on for the characters. This was a dark period in Batman's history that we hadn't seen before because it was something he didn't really want to talk about with anybody. And now that we have this issue of him proposing to Selina Kyle in response to what his father had told him in the button on Another Earth, we get to see this dark period that isn't, from the history as we know it. This takes place shortly after Zero Year, in that kind of year 2 of Batman period, pre-Robin, post-Origin. And we have a Joker who has lost his sense of humor. He can't find things as funny as he used to, and he's trying desperately to do as many depraved things as he can to find that laughter amongst this war that he has with the Riddler. I like that this last issue was very action-packed. It felt like a finale in that way, where it was a climactic battle. I thought the twist was really interesting, that in some way this whole war, spoilers, was the Riddler trying to help the Joker, even though they were at each other's throats for the entire thing, and the whole war was started by the Joker shooting the Riddler. And I think in some way that's still the Riddler having a war at all. If he's trying to help the Joker, if he's showing the Joker that he's mastered the art of both riddles and jokes, then he's really won this war in his way of thinking. I thought the ending was really cool. Batman's whole little secret that he had been telling Selina Kyle was like, this dark thing that happened during the War of Jokes and Riddles that he regrets, the thing that kind of ended it, was really, really fascinating. And what he thinks that means for him, that everyone thinks that he's so noble, that he never kills, that's a choice he's made, and that, it's only because of the Joker having intervened the only time he, spoilers, tried to kill somebody. I thought it was an interesting take, because I wonder if there's something to be said about the fact that the Joker doesn't want anybody else to be the thing that makes Batman break his rule, that he stopped Batman because it wasn't him killing the Joker. You see what I mean? Because he was trying to kill the Riddler, the Joker couldn't have that. And, it helps that he finds that so funny once he does stop him. And, it's not just that he stopped him from killing somebody other than the Joker, but it's that the Joker saved Batman from going down that dark path. So there you have it. Those are my, we'll call them my quick takes, because I think quick hits is actually something that's taken. And I don't think this is going to turn into a thing, in any way. It's just that this week has been really busy for me, and I couldn't make it in to do this, but I felt like I really had to still say something about these books and be a part of the conversation in some way. So, as they'll say at the end of this podcast, if you guys have anything you want to talk about, or if you have any takes of your own, please send them in to comicmadnesskyle@gmail.com. And I don't know, maybe we'll turn this into a thing where we read your quick hits or your quick takes, and make a whole thing out of what you guys think and add your voices into the conversation. But let's get back to the episode and see what the boys think.
But yeah, so that was this week in comics.
Next week, I guess we'll talk probably a lot about metal.
Yeah, so next week it'll be a little bit more return to form. Kyle will be here.
Maybe we'll talk Star Wars.
Maybe, hopefully, somebody will send in a question or something. I know it's only the second week, but please do, if you're listening out there. I know that we had gotten a decent amount of listens. I think almost exceeding expectations for a lot of us, the three of us in general. We had numbers, and all three of us had exceeded those numbers. That being said, I know Kyle has some bits and pieces that he's going to kind of, plop in here and there. I don't know where, and quite frankly, I apologize for both the audio and any kind of hiccups that this podcast may have had, because this was done very quickly, and Kyle's getting married, so he has the perfect excuse for the second not to be here for the second episode. That being said, if you guys have any questions, please send them in. Comments, concerns, coming to the shop, right on the Facebook, Twitter. I think we're on iTunes now. You can review us. We'd really appreciate that. This is obviously a labor of love. We're not getting anything out of this. None of us think we're going to get famous or even money for it. So it's just a fun thing that we would like to do to kind of engage with both the people at the shop and anyone else listening. And, we would love to start a conversation. That being said, I am Frank, and Troy is on his way out. He's got somewhere to go. So
congratulations, Kyle!
Congratulations, yeah! Kyle! Woo!
Which is funny because I think our next podcast is going to go up before he actually gets married.
Before he actually gets married.
But anyway, congratulations!
Congratulations! Woo! And yeah, that's it. So I went on a very long tangent about I don't even know what. Enjoy yourselves. Keep safe.
Till next week.
This is the madness.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Everybody out there, stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. Have a good night. Madness is closing its doors. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Have a good night.
All right, dudes. Join us next week, where I will probably actually be there, and we are going to be talking about the new issue of DC Metal number 3. We're going to be talking about the Oz Effect. We're going to be talking about A Lonely Place of Living, and we'll probably recap the first issue of that book, and we'll probably have a lot to say about the new crop of Marvel Legacy titles. So, see you then.